Spencer J. Fox was born and raised in the town of Fairfield. He and his wife Abby are parents of 4 children. Spencer and Abby both graduated from North Sandy High School, Snow Falls, and Utah State University. Abby received a degree in special education, while Spencer earned a BA degree in political science with a minor in Spanish. While at USU, Spencer was recognized by his department as the Student of the Year. He graduated from the Washington Lee School of Law with honors while distinguishing himself with several accolades in related law review. Upon graduation, they moved to Davis County, where Spencer had the opportunity to serve as law clerk to Federal District Judge Ted Stewart. Following that clerkship, Spencer began his career as an attorney in the law firm of Canadian in Salt Lake City. In 2003, Spencer and Abby decided to return and raise their family in Fairfield, Utah. Spencer accepted the position of vice president with Centricom, a rural telecommunications company. Since his arrival, Centricom has doubled in size from 45 employees to more than 90 despite the severe economic downturn. During the next 10 years in Fairview, he served as councilman and mayor of Fairview City, as a Sandy County commissioner, and in the Utah House of Representatives representing District 58. As lieutenant governor, he serves as the state election officer thus the late night last night. Legislative liaison, chair or co-chair of 10 committees or commissions, and member of 7 committees covering a wide array of issues including education, multicultural affairs, homelessness, constitutional defense, emergency management, bonding, rural, and economic development. In his spare time, he loves running as well as camping and hiking with his family. Please welcome our Lieutenant Governor, Spencer J. Fox.
I'm excited to be here with you this morning. Actually, I'm not excited to be here at all. I mean, I'm going to be perfectly honest. It's great to be with this group. You can have the peanut gallery up there. That's perfect. I'm very excited about that. It was a very long night. I finally made it to bed about 2:30 this morning. Looked at my calendar just before crashing and thought, I'm going to schedule something at 8:30 after the election. And I thought as an attorney, y'all had a deal that nothing started before 9, preferably 10. But apparently that's not the case. So it's great to see so many of you bright-eyed this morning. It was a very interesting night. Depending on your political affiliation, it was probably more interesting than for others. Here in the state of Utah, I should have known we were in trouble when we made it through to election closing at 8 o'clock with virtually no problems. It was as close to a flawless election as we have probably ever held in the state of Utah. And once the election closed, that's when the problems began, as it was as Murphy's Law would tell us. And so we had some problems with technology, and Salt Lake County especially had some issues. It's really hard when you're dealing with elections because they really kind of only happen once a year. I mean, we do the primary, but you can test and prepare and think you have everything in place. But the minute one thing goes wrong, the dominoes start to fall a little bit. All that meant was it was a little later night than I think most people had hoped for or anticipated. But the good news is that the data was in. The data was all correct at the end of the day, and so we feel very confident with the turnout. One election issue, and I was told I did not got anything that wanted to know this, but there was one issue that actually impacted my office and the General's office. And when you look at the constitutional amendments, all of you studied those religiously. There were 3 on the ballot. A and C failed, which is very interesting. And the thing I'm most impressed about that is I think it shows a sophistication in our elected shows that we had more people actually studying the issues, where you have one pass or two that do not. When there really was not much media coverage on those, they weren't necessarily controversial. Maybe a little more than the others, but specifically, you can see it, and I want to share some of my feelings on this. When I was first approached, I was very new in this office. For those of you that don't know, I've only been in governor for just over a year. It was October when the governor called me after serving in this position. And I came in on the tail end of the Attorney General investigation into John Swallow. Now, you'll recall there were several investigations at that time. But one of those involved my office for violations of elections law. And so I came in on the tail end of that and had an opportunity to work with an independent law firm on our investigation. We released that report, the rest of his history is well known. But I was approached by the state auditor and with the concern that we needed as executive officers, as constitutional officers, we needed the ability to use outside counsel if we felt it was necessary outside of the Attorney General's office. And the example that was thrown around was my office, the ability to investigate someone in the AG's office if necessary, that there would be a need to the outside counsel. But we were able to do that anyway. But it seemed like a good idea at time and time. There was no money going to be appropriated for our own fund, and it would just be in limited circumstances. We felt that there was some sort of conflict with the AG's office. At least that was the idea. So I lent in my support. I didn't do much more than that. It didn't pass the legislature and went on the ballot as a constitutional amendment. Well, as I had more time to look at it and see the breadth of which that included, which would have allowed me, again, assuming I could find funds, to hire outside counsel and never have to use the AG's office if I chose not to. There were no restrictions on it, even though that was kind of the way it was presented. I decided that I couldn't support it and actually ended up voting against it, and felt like there's a reason, and that is just another check that was very important in our Constitution to use the Attorney General's office, and that there was no reason to duplicate that, and that that was an important relationship between my office and the AG's office, and especially with the auditor and the treasurer as well. So I think that the citizens of the state of Kentucky got that right, and I'm very happy with the way that turned out. The other amendment, which did not pass, and didn't have any real strong feelings on, had to do with our tax commission, and the makeup of the tax commission right now by Constitution is required that we have two Republicans and Democrats serve in that capacity. This would have removed that requirement and allowed, with some restrictions placed by the legislature as far as qualifications, would have been subject to those qualifications, allowed the governor to be anyone from any party and really take the party out of that. You can imagine, and probably heard the arguments on both sides of that. One is that, well, this is kind of a power play by Republicans, or just Republicans on there. And the counter issue to that was our tax commissioners act by and large in the role as judges, and we don't ask those questions when we're selecting judges, and the idea being that we just choose the best candidates regardless of the political affiliation, and the political affiliation should not play a role in that. Regardless of your thoughts on that, like that is not passed. Amendment B, it's great for the work that it does. Again, my office a little bit, and I felt it was no-brainer, really just to clean up. We haven't had a lieutenant governor always in the history of our state. In fact, in the 70s, I'm just the 8th lieutenant governor in the state. And as someone smarter than I was researching and looking at the Constitution, there is a rare situation, and I won't go into the gory details, where it would be possible for the governor and the lieutenant governor, one or the other, to stand for election without the other. It was clearly never the intent as we look back historically of this change. It's supposed to be just like the president and vice president, where we always stand for election together. Whenever one of us stands, we're on there together. And so you could imagine this strange situation where the governor has to stand for the election, and the lieutenant governor does not, and then someone else wins as he becomes the governor, even from another party, and you have this lieutenant governor who's still out there. Just because the governor we run on the same ticket, and the governor could appoint me at the resignation of our good friend Greg Bell, he can't fire me. I am a constitutional officer, and so it was very important that we tie those things together so as to not bind the hands of the future governor. And I appreciate the citizens of the state of Kentucky getting that right. So that was the night. Very interesting. A lot of history was made here in the state of Utah with the election of Neil Love. History was made nationally again with kind of a Republican way. What that means for the state of Utah, I don't know that we know that yet. I'm the guy that got in trouble a couple weeks ago for referring to Congress as a dumpster fire. It was kind of the best analogy I could come up with. I thought that was kind. I'm not sure that calculation changes much with the way the Senate is made up without having 60%. I sincerely hope it does change. Again, regardless of your political affiliation, I detest the gridlock in DC and feel like I know it's always bad. As I travel, some of you know I still live in Fairview. I commute 100 miles from Fairview to the Capitol every day, one way, and 100 miles back. And don't worry, I have a hybrid, and I commute with one of my staffers at least in Utah County, so that works out. But I listen to a lot of books on tape, and one of the things that I thought would be fun to do when you have 3 hours of commute time every day is to listen to a biography of every president. And right now I'm on Andrew Jackson, and it's been fascinating. We always think that things are worse now than they've ever been. And when you look at the John Quincy Adams and Andrew Jackson presidential election of, I think it was 1828, it was, we think politics is dirty, but Andrew Jackson, or excuse me, John Quincy Adams Jr. was actually criticized and accused of being a pimp for the Tsar of Russia. This actually happened, and seriously, it was printed in many respectable publications. Andrew Jackson was accused of being a bigamist, which actually was probably true. He married his wife who was not divorced from her husband, so I guess technically she would be the bigamist, but nonetheless, she died of a heart attack in December, just before Andrew Jackson took office, and it was roundly believed at the time, and it's possibly true, that it was all the stress of the election, the accusations went to her that caused her untimely death at the time. So things have been pretty bad before, but it's interesting, at least in modern times, to see what's happening in Congress, the divisiveness. Just one interesting stat, and I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, I should have brought them, but if you look at, I assure you this is going somewhere, but when you look at the makeup of the House of Representatives in Congress, okay, if you look at ideology, and they've been tracking these things for a long time. There are respectable publications that track votes and can really determine where on a scale of conservative on the right and liberal on the left every representative falls by their vote count. And we can compare, here is in history, from vote count from the 70s and 80s and 90s. So let me just set up this, and this is something that was quite troubling to me. Again, regardless of your political affiliation, if you you imagine again this this scale of say, you know, 0 to 100, 0 being the most liberal and 100 being the most conservative. So just imagine this line, and we're going to plot on this line all of the Republicans in the House of Representatives, from the most liberal Republican on the left to the most conservative Republican on the right. So you kind of got this in your head. And then we're going to overlay the same line with the Democrats. We're going to have the most liberal Democrat on the left and the most conservative Democrat on the right. Okay, think Matheson, right? Kind of over here. And we're going to overlay those two. And if you can imagine the intersection between the most liberal Republican, okay, so you're with me now, this is the Republican that votes the most left over here, and the most conservative Democrat on the right, and then you look at our little chart here and look at all of the members of Congress that fall between those two people, okay? You kind of see where we're going with this. We'll call that the middle, for lack of a better term, okay? If you look in the kind of late 70s, early 80s, there were 350 members of Congress that fell in between those two people. So now, any ideas what it was this last session of Congress? It fell between those two people. It was 8. Yeah, it was 8. Yeah. And if you look over the intervening time, I mean, in the 80s it was about 250. In the 90s we were about 125. Two sessions ago we were 11. Now we made it all the way to 8. So again, regardless of how you feel on these things, there's a reason nothing is getting done, and I hope that we can kind of see that change. Now, what that means is more and more is getting done at the state level. That's where it's going. More and more responsibility is being placed on states to actually make decisions that impact real human beings and to try to solve the problems that are impacting our nation. Now, I believe a lot of that is good. I believe that the states should be a place to experiment with policies and find things that work. And we have the opportunity to learn from one another and make decisions. And federalism was an important part of the founding of our great nation and has become a less important part over time as the federal government has become more and more powerful. And so, I think there is some good that is coming out of this, and I want to talk just about a couple of those things in the time I have remaining, and then I'm happy to take any questions that you might have. One is public land. Something that I know is of interest to many of you. Many legal minds, bright legal minds have weighed in on this topic. There is a big push in the state of Utah to do something to take back those lands. When you look again through history, the disposal of public lands has been a big issue for a long time. It was an issue in the 1800s, the early 1800s, the middle 1800s, late 1800s, and early 1900s, with various states as they came into and how this would happen. The federal government has agreed to dispose of the lands, but no one really knows what that means. It doesn't necessarily mean giving them back to the state. And even if we are successful in a challenge, and again, somehow the federal government is forced to dispose of those lands, again, what does that mean, and what is the remedy? There are many bright people, bright attorneys, who think that this will not happen, that there is no way the court would ever rule in our favor. There are others that think that there's a chance, and that's a chance worth taking. I can tell you that the governor is very interested in those arguments. He's interested in pursuing this, but pursuing it rationally and reasonably and extremely cautiously. There are some who have criticized the governor for taking a cautious approach there. I think that is the right thing to do. In the meantime, Congressman Rob Bishop is working on a public lands initiative, hopefully following that, working with counties and really stakeholders from across the spectrum. It's a really, I don't I don't know how to put this without sounding too over the top, but I think it's a historical opportunity. I truly believe that. We have people in the room that rarely get in the room together, and they're working to find areas of agreement. Now, we know where the disagreement is. And what we're finding is when we get rid of the rhetoric and we actually sit down and have some discussions about real plots of land and real opportunities, that we kind of agree on a lot of this stuff. We all want to protect our incredible scenic vistas and landscapes. We all believe in that. And so what we found is we have some county commissioners who aren't used to doing this, but have been able to sit down and come to some agreement. Duchesne County was the first one to really announce. Others are getting closer. Some are still a ways away. But an agreement for additional wilderness protection, something that we haven't seen very often. And then an agreement from the environmental and recreation community on lands that can and should be developed. And the reason that this has an opportunity to succeed, and the reason I say it's historical, the window for this happening is very narrow, but last night was actually a positive night for those of us that believe that we're going to be better off coming to some sort of agreement on how to manage the climate as opposed to just suing and really putting all our chips out on the table. And that is that we believe there's a 99% chance that Rob Bishop will become the chair of the Natural Resources Committee that will be dealing with this issue. The reason the window is so small is Rob has also said, look, my bill first, and then we'll get everybody else's, and I'll work with all of you, but we have to get this one done, which means that really our time frame is January, February of next year. And we believe that we have the support to actually get this through the Senate. We're hopeful, again, because of the many groups that are at the table. In fact, we've been told by the Secretary of the Interior that they are very much supportive of this process, and the administration is supportive of this process, and we can find levels of agreement that they will be supportive of a bill that comes forward, a consensus bill on this issue. So it won't solve all of the problems, but it will solve a lot of the problems, and especially if we can get more counties to participate. We're working with, I believe, 7 counties right now, and all of them are in various stages of positive movement, and we're keeping our fingers crossed that this can happen. So I just wanted to put that out there. I also wanted to talk for a minute. I know our time is pretty short. What time can you be quick to drop it? 4 minutes. Okay. We do not have time to talk about health and Utah in 4 minutes. So let me just say that process is moving forward. We're in just a brief holding pattern. In the coming weeks, you're going to see significant movement on Medicaid expansion here in the state of Utah. It will be likely one of the most interesting legislative, executive branch debates that we've seen in a long time in the state. So you've got that to look forward to January. I've got a couple minutes left. I would love to take a question or two if any of you have any questions. I know it's early, that's okay too. So, any questions? I think we do have a microphone. Anything's on the table? All right, seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and conclude. Let me just thank you for the great work that you're doing. One of the really cool things that people ask me all the time, what does Lieutenant Governor do? And I didn't until I got the job. But it's one of the things that I do is I travel around the state and meet with great people, men and women like you, who are doing incredible things. That's really the most important part of my job. 50,000 miles in the past year, actually 54,000. Traveling to every county multiple times, spending time just seeing what's happening in our state. We continue to get a lot of great accolades. They're well deserved. We pat ourselves on the back and we do too much as politicians. We've never seen an accolade that we're not willing to take credit for. But we realize that those things are happening by and large because of you. I think I did see a hand. Yeah. So let me just repeat, if there is any movement towards removing some of the limitations on notarization to move it into, this secure electronic advancement. I don't know that there are any, but I would be supportive of those. I think that's something we need to have more discussion with the legislature. I know there's some legislators that are interested in that. Anything we can do to improve commerce in the state, I'm all over that. I would also support moving the regulation of notaries out of the governor's office, where I'm not sure how on earth it got there or why it's there. It's really kind of a random thing. It should probably be doing commerce. I think that would be the place where we would move. We had some discussions about that. That would allow us to take advantage of then the infrastructure that commerce has available to make some of those changes. So that's something I would absolutely support. So, anyone else? Okay, Tina, thanks for allowing me to be here. Thanks for the great work that you're doing. Keep it up and let me know where we can help. Thank you.